trying to recognize the strengths in people and trying to, foster that and bring it forward, and still trying to conduct your business and doing your own thing can be a pretty awkward situation. And as someone who has a vision like that, I think that I made the mistake sometimes of trying to think their future in it for them, trying to guide them down that way, when really I should have stepped back and looked at it a little different way. It can lead to a volatile situation. I'm hopeful that in the end it all works out. Many people go on to do great things. Does everybody love me? No. Do I feel that I've been able to make differences in people's lives? I know I have. Just by, build it and they will come. I have the shop and all of that. But nope, that can be a very confusing thing between people. I've learned that lesson, and I've learned my space in it. I've learned what I can do with it and what I can't, and what I can expect certainly these days.
Today on Life with Strings Attached, we're live on location in Cozumel, Mexico, with my very special guest, Bryan Galloup. As the founder of the Gallup School of Luthiery, which has graduated more than 2,500 luthiers, many of which are now world-renowned guitar makers and employees throughout the entire guitar industry, Bryan's influence is difficult to quantify. Over the past 4 decades, he's devoted his career to the preservation of vintage and contemporary fretted musical instruments, along the way contributing many jigs, fixtures, and techniques that have become commonplace in the guitar repair and restoration field today. As a guitar maker, guitar consistency and tonal development is Bryan's primary focus, leading him to develop new techniques and analysis while taking deep dives into the science of the guitar. I thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with Bryan. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. So, we're here in Cozumel again.
Again.
I love it.
Yep, Cozumel has treated us well.
Yeah, it has. You treated us well. It was, I don't know, maybe 2018 or so, you contacted me and said, hey, you come down and meet us in Mexico, and I couldn't do it at the time. But the very next year, I knew I was going to make it happen, and this is now our 3rd time down here.
Something like that. We did it just before COVID.
Yeah.
And we met up with Joe and Josh.
Yeah, Joe Glazer.
Who you met. Gray was here at that time.
Yeah.
I don't think any of the guys, the team.
No, Gene made it down.
Yeah, before that, the Coral Princess was a great place, and we bought coupons, and we've used it for raising our kids here, and we brought the staff for many years back when it was more realistic to do that. It wasn't really about pricing, it was more about their lives changed, when they have kids, and just wasn't realistic for them anymore. But it was a lot of fun watching them come to Mexico and just have a blast.
Imagine, I never had a boss that brought me to Mexico. You got to work for him.
Yeah, well, sometimes you just have to do things like that. I can remember, I don't remember who it was. I think maybe it was Will Hilton. And we were down here, and I thought, you need to go scuba diving. So, I paid for him to get his lessons in the pool. Remember when you did that?
Yeah.
And I saw him out there in one of the dive sites, just looking. Well, of course, he has that crazy hair, anyways. Just looking around, going, oh well, as the saying goes, this does not suck.
Yeah.
Opened his eyes.
Yeah. Well, it's been a great thing, and Roberta and I really appreciate you including us in this party, which is one of the great things that we have in common, is that I think everyone in our industry, not everyone, okay, most people in our sector of the industry, the boutique guitar sector of the industry, are making active choices of lifestyle over financial pursuit necessarily. We have to make the money, but it's really important to us that we are living life as well. That's a big deal. I think our friend Sheldon Dingwall said it best when he said, it doesn't pay the highest in cash, but you get really great returns in your dividends in soul currency, he called it.
Yeah.
And being down here and, having a chance to do life and business with you and Joe and a few others, that I think that's a really core part of what we do as boutique guitar makers and in this part of the guitar industry. We all pursue this because it's a passion industry. Do you agree with that?
I do. The guitar industry is quirky. We talked about that before, and it is a cottage industry. You know, when we intertwine with big business, but just having the ability to come down and engage people at a different level, and it does open up another avenue for a business talk that floats over. You know, and with Joe and I, you know, you go scuba diving and strap on 2,300 pounds of gas and flop into a hostile environment. He's your buddy.
Yes.
That opens up a certain level of trust.
Yeah.
But coming down, you know, there is a lot of great things that happen that float over into our business lives in a positive way. It takes on a very positive message rather than always banging it out or trying to anticipate what's coming around the corner. And we talked about that even a little bit yesterday and this morning. It's okay to look around and see what's happening right now, and this is a great place to slow down.
Yeah, you know, the needs that are met in the business of guitar are hard to identify because so many of us are in the business. So many of us are customers because it's an obsession, it's a passion, and people, how they allocate their resources towards their passions and possessions are a lot harder to predict than, let's say, food or gasoline or other commodities. And so there's always this sort of talk about what it is that inspires someone and how that then will translate into how it's going to affect our businesses, right? So if people are more interested in, you know, I hear people crying out for, oh, we need more guitar heroes. If we don't have guitar heroes, we're not going to sell guitars, you know, and that's but the problem is they don't know where the guitar hero is going to come from. You know, we didn't expect, no one expected Elvis Presley or the Beatles. No one expected Eddie Van Halen. Nobody expected, you know, Bill Monroe or whoever it happens to be. We just never know. So it leaves this level of sort of uncertainty and unpredictability within what we do. And I think it's the straight out passion and will to stay within that sort of area that you love that keeps us here. Because otherwise, I think the unpredictability might drive a lot of people out.
Oh, yeah. That's kind of happening, you know, in my personal environment. Years ago, I mean, you have to have a vision. You have to put forth a vision. You have to think about it and make sure that you fit well within it, like it's part of your spirit. You know, it's not somebody else's idea that you're trying to cop and move forwards with, and follow through and completion is a big part of that. And I had a long-term vision that was very difficult to keep on track. And I found myself in a place where I had reached all my goals. I had reached, you know, they had come to completion.
Yep.
And because they were so difficult to keep on track, I didn't have anything left after that. I hadn't made any new goals, which didn't end up being all so bad because now I can look around at the market and say, well, how do I fit into this that's pleasant for me, that's real? And that's when I'm looking at the market right now, and I go to NAMM and I kind of watch what's going on, and God, the business has changed so much in the last 15 years. And of course, it's always changing, but my perception of it just needed to be reevaluated on my end to make sure that I stay pure for whatever the next run is for me.
Mm-hmm. You know, that recasting of the vision, I think, is something that is sometimes difficult for other people to see. It's a real entrepreneurial act that you're talking about. You know, I think the average person thinks that entrepreneurship is owning a business, but the Austrian economist Joseph Schumpeter made it really clear that you can own a business and not be an entrepreneur. You can open up a pizza shop and make pizzas, and you own a pizzeria and you're in business. You're not an entrepreneur until you're doing your pizzas in a way that haven't been done before, or the process in a way, or the, you know, improve the ordering system or the customer interaction. If you now deliver your pizzas by drones, now you're an entrepreneur. You know, if you start putting on toppings that haven't existed before, combinations, now you're an entrepreneur. And that really is not just the continuation of a business, it's that recasting of that, of a new vision.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between being in business and being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, entrepreneurs, and I've discussed this with many people, and sometimes it's a hard thing to recognize, but not everybody can do that. They don't have that sense. That's not a positive thing. It's not a negative thing, but they sample their world in a little bit of a different way. And a true entrepreneur, from what I can see, and I like to think of myself as one, or I've learned to identify that within me, but they'll ponder things and they'll flip them and twist them, and all of a sudden, pow, that idea comes together.
Yeah.
And then they can see where that path is, and then they start formulating that long-term plan. Of course, a business, like anything, is a chess game. You're going to meet things along the way that you're going to have to deal with. And additionally, I was talking to Jamie Olson just last week. Went down and spent a little time with her, and she was referring to that as not everybody has an artist sense. They can't pull ideas out of midair and transform it. Their vision of that is a more replication, even though they might be able to do amazing things with it, and their contributions are important. But that's the space where we fit in. That's where our contributions, I think, to our community is. We can fuel a lot of possibilities for people and situations.
I can see that as being a particular challenge for Jamie, because she's doing the inlay work for so many other people, and the inlay has become sort of the painter's canvas aspect of the guitar in many ways, and so she gets paid to realize other people's visions. But as somebody who does have a real artistic eye, there must be moments where she gets a commission where she must be looking at it going, we might be able to improve this a little. I don't know if they do that. I don't know if they alter at all I've never spoken to her about that, but I can certainly see, certainly as someone who's done a fair amount of design work for other people myself, they cast a vision, and it can be an interesting sort of dance to sort of get them into a position where they're going to have a great product because your name is attached to that product, right? Who did this? Oh, Olson Inlay did this.
Yeah, not only your name, but your identity and your spirit is attached to that process. Think about it. You have a customer, and it could be anybody in the industry, speaking from like Jamie's perspective, but it's really an artist's perspective.
Yes.
And they have an idea because they saw a t-shirt somewhere and they go, oh, I would like to bring this in. Then they send that t-shirt to them.
Yeah.
And then Jamie or whoever the artist is would have to funnel it back to that person, and they end up completely wrapped up in the identity of that guitar.
Yes.
If the person who is doing the art ever disappears from that particular flow of that perspective on that guitar, as the canvas would be disrupted. They would notice, the public would notice a shift.
Yes.
So that's a real commitment between the person they're doing the work for and who they choose, to include into their product, stepping out. I've seen her do so many great things, just small stuff. Like the little skyline she did for Roger Sadowski, I thought fit perfectly within Roger's message, and he seemed to be pleased with that too. Myself, mine is, of course, we have the school, which, I'm very proud of. We talked about that, and so many people that come through, but I've done a little bit of work for people, more like a consulting type thing. I like to keep my inlays and stuff to the guitars that we do for us.
Yeah.
But she communicates and transcends into an entirely different thing with people than what I do. I try to say, I like to say with what we have, well, here's what worked for me, and if it works for you, I can help you apply it.
Yeah.
But that's about as far as I can go.
Well, I mean, you're in we're talking about the same issue here, where you are also helping people enact the reality of their vision. They come to you at your school with a dream of being a guitar maker or a repair person or working for someone else. They come with an expectation to achieve a particular thing. And it's part of your role, and part of the people who work for you's role is to help guide them to realize that vision, which will then leave them with a sense of satisfaction, right? We all want satisfied customers in the end, right? And so, guiding them through to that, and I imagine in the school sense, there must be a percentage of existential crisis that happens when people show up and they sort of realize that their vision is maybe not necessarily aligned with something that's very achievable for them the right way, or realize that there's going to be more work to put in here, or that they come and they, I talked with some of the attorneys the other day who said they got involved in a company and they happened to get into operations and realized they have a passion for operations.
Oh.
So next thing you know, he's in the business side of it, but thought he was in it for a completely different reason, and fell in love with the operations of the business and the systems, and that really lit him up in a way that was unexpected. And so I imagine there's people who come to your school with the idea that they're there for this, and then another opportunity opens up and they fully engage in a different path, and you must have to remain conscious of the process of guiding them, or do you step back from that? Is that a wrong assumption?
No, you're spot on. Well, of course, it's the give and take on both sides of the nickel that you're talking about, that's continually spinning, and you can't separate the heads from the tails. But the students are my customers, and in the beginning it was more one-on-one, but they're my customers, and we have an obligation to recognize the core of the body of the class. Living somewhere in the middle is the correct place to be, and then deal with the outliers, people that might be having some anxiety and second thoughts, and people that are more go-getters, but they're ahead of the class. We have to kind of keep it together. But watching people transform within the class is a magical thing, and I very much enjoy that, and I know that the staff does. And we consciously talk about that and recognize it. We talk about people that seem more shy. I almost use the word introverted, but it's not a negative thing. But then when you see them blossom, it's just an amazing thing. And of course, where they're fueling it more. I have people that show up for a 2-month class, and then after a month, they're scrounging to stay for 6. And I have people that even move into up to a year to stay in the class because they realize that there is a path here for them. They didn't come through the door knowing what that was, but they knew they were interested in it. They knew probably that either they were unhappy where they were before, or there didn't seem to be a direction, or they were looking for another part of their spirit to open up. But they end up, and the other portion of your statement of the conversation is that you just don't know where they're going to end up. I mean, a great example, someone we're all very proud of. Chris Griffiths, look where he ended up. Right. I mean, he's like driving a whole percentage of our industry.
Yeah, about $200 million, I think. I think I can say that. I don't dare number the public.
Well, it's no mystery that he was born to do that.
Yes.
He came into the school at 19, and he was great. He worked directly with Jim Beat and I. That was in the infancy of the school, but I knew he was going somewhere else. Yeah. And he went right back to that repair shop in Newfoundland. And next thing you know, he's making guitars. And next thing you know, he has a business. Yeah. And you just kind of moved on from there. The other things, there are so many other, not outliers, but people that come to the school. You just don't know where they're going to end up. Yeah.
Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop is your premier fretted instrument custom case maker, and we invite you to create a musical instrument case unlike any other, one that's unique to you. Every Cedar Creek custom case is hand-built by highly skilled craftspeople using only select woods, Providence Forge hardware, and premium instrument-friendly materials. At Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop, we are dedicated to helping you design the case of your dreams. Find out more at cedarcreekcases.com.
We're all proud of Megan Wells. I mean, she's just building some of the most unique arch tops that truly expressed who she is. Yes. I mean, when you see a Megan Wells arch top, you know that you're seeing a part of her. There's no separation between her and her guitars.
Yeah, and she is a wonderful, glorious. She is a glorious example of the embodiment between the person and the craft. Mm-hmm. I have pictures of Megan at a NAMM show where she has literally got her head pressed against the demo room with a huge smile on her face as she's hearing someone play her guitar. And she is just in the zone because she feels seen. She feels when they connect with her guitar, and they see her guitar, she feels seen, she feels connected with. I mean, she hasn't told me that, but I that's the way I feel about watching her with her instruments and watching with her people, is that she's a wonderful embodiment of craft and soul. Would you agree with that?
Well, and not only do I agree, obviously a lot of other people agree
Yeah.
right now. It was 7 years ago, 8 years ago. I was in Santa Barbara, and I watched it hit around her. I watched her market find her.
Yeah.
She was grinning from ear to ear. And to her testament, she didn't give up.
No, absolutely. And, yeah, one of the many wonderful souls here in the industry. I just sort of realized in the interview concept is that we're saying some people that maybe we need to give a little bit of understanding to. You mentioned Chris Griffiths, but I think Chris is one of those guys who's in the industry that our viewers might not understand. So Chris was one of your early students, but he went on to create the Garrison Guitar Company, which was a innovative and interesting company with glass strand fiber framing. With
progressive thought.
Very progressive thought. And that's actually where I met Chris. Is he came to my retail store and he was selling me his guitars. I remember sitting in my office with Chris trying to sell me on those guitars and buying into it. And we did very well with his guitars. We sold quite a few of them. My store manager in particular was really behind them, and he did a great job selling those guitars. And that company eventually sold to Gibson, and Chris, went on to American Music and Sound, and he redesigned a part of the Parker line also. The sort of because they owned the Parker line, and I remember standing with him at the NAMM show once, saying I saw the new Parker releases and looking at it, going, "Oh, whoever did this design got the essence." They did a very good job of riding that line between the original Parker Fly and then pulling it more towards the Stratocaster. And he thanked me, and he said, "I did that." I said, "You did that." And my respect went up. And now, of course, Chris is the chief sales officer for D'Addario, and of course that means he's involved with everyone in artistry.
Yeah, well,
point.
D'Addario, they're connected. But when Chris came to school, and we're going to backtrack this real quick,
Yeah.
he was there, then he said, "I want to start a company called Garrison Guitars." And I go, "Well, no, you got to use your last name." And we argued about that. And he said, "That's an awesome name for a guitar." Well, later on, of course, he actually went and made that Garrison line.
Yes.
And I do believe I was there, Susan and I was at an Asia Guitar Show, Association of String Artisans in Nashville. And Chris showed up, and he had the first known examples of that, and he set them up on our table. I think that was pretty early. Not that I'm plugging myself, but I'm just remembering all of this. And that went well, and when it's sold to Gibson, you said they also owned it. That was Gibson also owned Parker? Is that what you were saying?
Oh, no, that was Parker was American Music and Sound.
Oh.
So after the Gibson period,
Okay.
Chris went and worked for American Music and Sound, and he ended up setting up the Washburn Custom Shop, the Parker Custom Shop.
Right.
I think it was in Chicago, possibly.
Chicago.
Yeah. And so I just gave a quick sort of background of Chris, because I got to tell you, of the entire industry, Chris is very high on my list of people whom I respect, and I value his opinion and his advice a great deal. And so we'll give Chris a little plug here. And
There's a little plug. Yeah, the one thing that Chris said, and it's always kind of stuck with me that I use for other people, is that when he was running the Garrison Company, he took care of all of his own books, he took care of all of his own paperwork, and he realized that was a sweet spot for himself. And that comes back to our initial conversation. You just don't know where people are going to end up.
Right.
But they know they like the music business, they know they like the culture. Maybe the glory thing of hanging out with their stars and stuff kind of goes away, but you can find your space. It's really a great space where there's a lot of opportunity if you know where to look for it and know how to reach out and take it.
Yes. Yeah. We all sort of find our own space within this industry. And so, all right. So one of the things I, talking with you over the years, because we're, and this is going to seem like an unreasonable distinction, but I'll try and justify it here for a second. Most of the people in the boutique guitar industry are not what I would call business people. As a matter of fact, they actively try not to be business people because there's some sort of they don't look, the businessman is associated with the man, you know, that whole sort of conformity bit. And there's a bit of a non-conformity aspect that drives guitar making. And so everyone must wrestle with this artisan and the idea that, well, the artisan needs to make money. Otherwise, the artisan has to be a barista who makes guitars on the side, you know, or something else. And so this is a real struggle. But when I give examples of people who have done a good job in our industry, who, when I speak to them, I don't need to gently guide them around the concepts of business so they feel comfortable with it. You know, Chris signed that list, you're on that list, Sheldon Dingwall, a few others, you know, people who can be a great artisan and also fully understand their responsibilities as a business person. You've had more than 2,500 luthiers, if we want to call them, come through your school at this point in time. Many of them are very successful, like Michael Greenfield, Isaac Jang, Megan Wells, Tyler Wells, and many others. But what do you think this is? That is this denial of the fiscal responsibility and why we don't want to fully engage in the business aspect as artisans. As a matter of fact, I'll cap this off saying I saw an Instagram post the other day of someone made a funny posting that talked about being a guitar maker is like 20% making guitars and 80% crying about your financial situation. And it got a lot of likes. A lot of people said, "Oh, I feel you, brother." You know. So, what is that? What do you think that is? Or do you think I'm nuts? Do you think that's not true? Or
I live in a unique situation, and that is I am lucky enough to be a part of a team, and I'm good at coming up with ideas, and I'm good at seeing trends, and I very much enjoy going out and being a part of it. But Gene, who works at the shop with me, I've always been lucky enough to be involved with somebody that I can collaborate with. So taking care of business.
that's not luck. You saw after that person, you put them in place, probably because you
let me
use it.
let me use the word fortunate then, but it was definitely a chosen thing. Some people might be good with at all of that, but I completely recognize the part of knowing that it's time to put somebody in charge of that who can take care of that correctly.
Yeah.
Being a part of a great team and running a good business, even in a small setup like I have, I think we have 9 employees all told. That doesn't necessarily have to be all that hard, and I think people can be terrified of that a lot. They just need to expose themselves to that end of it. I mean, but let's talk about Michael Greenfield. Michael Greenfield was a very successful restaurateur, you know, in the beginning, and he actually had a gig where he consulted and went in and turned restaurants and lines around. So moving into that portion of the business for him was obviously very good. I mean, look at what he does. But I do hear the people who are true artists, but also choose to work alone, and they make noises about that.
Yeah.
So I can't identify that 100%. Remember that I'm not a sole builder. I did do that at one point in my life. And I had an instrument that came in recently, and I was quite surprised at how good it was and that I had built it. So it reminded me that I did that at one point in my life. But now it's a multifaceted situation. We have the school, we have the guitars that we make, we have the software, and I think that my business part of that and my entrepreneur is balancing all of that successfully. The team looks to me for ideas, and then in turn we feed back on each other. So that's the portion of it that I find rewarding and easy for me, if that answers the question. I can do that, and that made sense to me.
Well, I think that is a key part of being an entrepreneur, is recognizing your strengths, but also your weaknesses. Perhaps it's more important to identify your weaknesses and compensate and look for partners, people who you can bring along the way with you, you know, recognize what their needs are and say, can I make a reasonable exchange where I can help take care of their needs within my vision and bring them along. And I think that you know, well, Gene is a wonderful example. Someone's been with you for many years at this point in time who is, you know, a great sort of, you know, I know that they're employees, but I think an entrepreneur at least in a small business, has to see each one of those people as a partner in some way.
Yeah.
You know, it may not be in the business set up that way legally, but you know, you realize it's partnerships compensating for your, you know, where you need compensation. None of us does everything perfectly.
I recognize her as an incredibly great asset to my life.
Yeah.
And I feel she feels the same way about us. And she always talks about it, how we found our tribe. And we're okay, we've decided we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And no, that's a very important aspect of it. I couldn't imagine at all being in the position I am right now without the ability to work with other people, which, by the way, is not a forever thing. They run their course.
Yes. Yeah. And you know, there's those great moments when you can look at someone and say, oh, really proud and happy to be a part of their journey. And it all just sort of, you know, left the nest. Everything worked out great for everyone involved. But, you know, you and I have discussed before that you also run the risk of having people who end up having expectations for you, and when they leave the nest, it doesn't turn out the way they want. And for me, I have a number of relationships throughout my decades now of business where I really thought I was giving somebody an incredible opportunity to do something, and it gave them all sorts of freedoms. They hate me now. They really hate me. And I didn't understand it. You know, there's a moment in the book which my kids and my wife and I all used to listen to an audiobook on the road, and there's this moment where this character convinces the entire village that the best thing to do is to uproot and leave their situation. And this person was not recognized as a leader before this moment, and one of his mentors comes to him and says, I can't believe I'm about to pack up my entire life and follow you into the mountains. He says, but I'm going to do it. But I warn you, you give people a dream, and if you achieve it, they will call you a hero. But if you don't, they will try and burn you at the stake.
Yeah.
And Goosebumps as I talk about it, you know, because I have had people who were, I thought, really close and dear people who I thought I was championing into a bold future for themselves.
Yeah.
Who, when it didn't work out, oh man, they hate me. They think I screwed them over somehow. They think, you know, and it's a bizarre thing. And you know, not to put any sort of words or story into your mouth, but can you, you know, anybody who tries to give somebody, share a vision with them, I think we all learn at a certain point in time that entrepreneurial impulse is not necessarily there, and you can't transplant it. And so I made the mistake many times of trying to transplant that entrepreneurial impulse before I realized that person was a bloody champion. When given marching orders, they could achieve the mission every time. You pull out the marching orders, they have to lead themselves. And they've gone from being a champion to failing for the first time, maybe. And the only difference to them was me. And therefore I must be the reason why. And so, have you tried to share that entrepreneurial impulse? Has it ever backfired on you?
Well, yeah, I have to remember it's my shop.
Yeah.
And I want to pay the bills. And the, you know, the last time I remember when I was at the bank signing my name on the big hundreds of thousands of dollar loan, nobody else was there.
Right.
So that's the big portion of it. But trying to recognize the strengths in people and trying to, you know, foster that and bring it forward, and still trying to conduct your business and doing your own thing can be a pretty awkward situation. And as someone who has a vision like that, I think that I made the mistake sometimes of trying to think their future in it for them, trying to guide them down that way, when really I should have stepped back and looked at it a little different way. It can lead to a volatile situation. I'm hopeful that in the end it all works out. Many people go on to do great things. You know, does everybody love me? No. Do I feel that I've been able to make differences in people's lives? I know I have. But just by, you know, build it and they will come. You know, I have the shop and all of that. But nope, that can be a very confusing thing between people. I've learned that lesson, and I've learned my space in it. And I've learned what I can do with it and what I can't, and what I can expect certainly these days.
the challenge for me is I still want to improve people's lives. That's an active impulse for me, is that I want to, like, if I meet a waiter at a restaurant who I think is exceptional, and look, I think we had this experience, I feel like, oh, I want to champion this person. And I will tell them, said, you are doing not just a good job as a waiter, you are doing an exceptional job. And I see huge potential in you. And you should know that. You should know that you can do great things. And I just wanted you to know that you could do great things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really important part for me. It happens to me fairly often. Certainly when I'm teaching in schools, as we travel around, or when I meet people at events, or G Guitar Showcase, or just at a restaurant. But I have to tell you, when those moments have happened where that blew up in my face, part of me says, maybe you should just let people live their own lives, and you should just, there's that, that protection to sort of pull back and try and protect yourself. But I think in the end, given some time and perspective, I'd say, I think I've still done more good.
Yeah, I think generally that's most people, by and large, that's their view. They really want to help. They just do a better job of conducting their lives and having it. Like you say, you want to pull back, and you don't want to do that, but you're going to do it again because it's in your nature. You have to remember also in my circumstance, and we talked about Susan, and we had a balance. And the people that were in my environment at that time when Susan was alive experienced that stable, balance. And of course, after Susan passed, there was 3 to 5 years of pure shock. I mean, I was holding it in where I'm trying to deal with the kids, but also I was trying to still conduct that portion of my life with the people in my business. And I didn't recognize that I couldn't do both. I couldn't take care of my family. I couldn't deal with this loss, and I couldn't deal with that portion of the people in the business the same way. And that's when it really started to become disruptive, especially in their life. I should have dealt with that. Well, in hindsight, right?
How did you do that?
Yeah, well, I didn't know, but I would have definitely done that differently. I mean, I could have steered that in a much different direction. But today, I have recognized the difficulties and have made adjustments for that. So I feel the people that are in my direct environment in the shop have a much better shake at their view on their own future and what I can deliver and how I can be of assistance to them and how we can collaborate with each other. So it's a very healthy environment at this point because of all of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's well, let's talk about that for a second, because I've had people from your life who've known you longer than I have, known you now for eight years, I think, since 2017, I think, something of the sort. At the Artisan Guitar Show, that's when we met, but we spent quite a bit of time together now. And I've had people from your life, from peripheries, from me, sort of come in and say, did you know Susan? And they'll say, she was remarkable. She was not an average woman. She was a very special person who did a lot of amazing things. And oh God, look at me. Because I have a
Well, that's a hard thing to get past. It is a hard thing to get past. I meet many people and they say to me, Bryan, you are living my nightmare. Jesus. I go, thanks a lot, buddy. I had that guy say to that just recently. He said, I bet you never heard that before. I go, you have no idea how many times I hear that. Guy said, how old were your kids? And I go, they were 5 and 7, and they're just looking around going, shit. Yeah. But you figure it out. Again, luckily, Jean, who was selected by Susan, we did that together, which was it was a very hard situation to say, we need to recognize this. And she was just like an angel came into our life.
Susan knew that her time was
Think
coming,
about
and
that.
she was getting someone in place to take over her work.
We had to physically discuss that. We had to openly discuss that. And so that's when that happened. And Jean just stepped right in and took over and made Susan feel comfortable. They overlapped. She made her feel comfortable that she was going to take care of things.
Yeah.
This wasn't going to fall apart. She was going to represent it in a fashion of what was already in the cards for the business.
Yeah.
And I was able to step back and take care of Susan, which was a process.
Yeah. Amazing.
It is something.
Yeah. You know, I think I can share this. A few years ago, my wife Roberta, she found a lump and she went. It was during COVID. I wasn't allowed to enter the hospital.
Yeah.
Dropping your wife off at the cancer center.
Yeah. Honey, I have what? What's going on? All right, well, we'll deal with this because in a certain sense of denial, you deal with and it slowly comes in. It's tough stuff. But it's interesting once it happens how the human brain protects itself.
Yeah.
Well, I get this response all the time. It's just I've lived it now for 11 years.
Yeah.
Gene knows, the guys in the shop, they knew.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I was just trying to get to the practical point of.
it's hard. It's hard.
I
don't want to. Yeah,
Roberta has asked. I have to ask Roberta for my bank account now.
Yeah, well, let me tell you this. It's not that I'm not callous about it and everything,
No,
because
it
it is an emotional thing. But it's just that I've already worked through over a decade of this.
Of course.
And when other people, I see them going through it, I try to make time to go spend time with. I said, "You are going to be okay. You're going to work through this," and to let them know the options ahead of time. Because when you get cancer these days, it's not necessarily a death sentence. They have so many advances, and they've cured so many. It just wasn't the option for Susan. We knew that immediately that it was going to be a very tough road ahead.
Yeah.
But again, coming back to the business portion of it, it found a way of working itself out.
Yeah.
And again, that's leaning on those partners, right? It's leaning on other people who can help step in at that point in time, and it's a huge part of my core business. And I state it regularly. I say we are better together. You've probably seen me write it in emails to people who are on the Boutique Guitar Showcase tour or the NAMM show. The whole concept is that as a bunch of smaller independent businesses, if we can pull together and achieve a critical mass, we can do things that we absolutely could not do individually. And so even as we go on tour, the whole concept of the tour is I don't need to find hotels and ballrooms and try and figure out how to get people there. I go into foreign markets, but I need those foreign partners. I need people who speak the language and know the tax codes and already have relationships with the customers in the area who'd be interested in the guitars and the magazines and the media and such. And so I rely on partners all the time. As a matter of fact, I don't know if there's anything I do where there's not a partnership involved. That's super important. And let me tie this into something that's interesting because I want to make sure it's part of this conversation.
The Boutique Guitar Showcase on tour will make its first ever Asian appearance at Sound Messe Osaka in Osaka, Japan, May 11th and 12th, 2024. You can experience many incredible, unique, world-class guitars, meet some of their makers, and speak with me, Jamie Gale, the curator of the Boutique Guitar Showcase, at this landmark event. Find out more at boutiqueguitarshowcase.com.
One of the companies that I consult with recently has had a situation where their demand has gone so high up, their sales doubled overnight. And they were already 3 years out. And then they've had this huge demand, and they are a company who makes more production also, and so they are trying to increase that. But as we sort of strategize as to what the future looks like on that, I said, there's something here that I think is really important to address right now, that as you're focused on all of the opportunity, what you need to realize is you've done great work and you're going to amplify all of your strengths here.
Yeah.
You're also going to amplify your weaknesses. And you need to look at what you're doing right now and say...
You mean amplify.
Yes.
You're amplify, right?
You're going to amplify your strengths. You are also going to amplify your weaknesses. And the reason I say that is you need to look at your processes right now and say, we're sustaining this thing that we kind of put it on the back burner. We're not dealing with it yet, but there's going to be a tipping point. And look at that and say, could you amplify that by 1,000 and be okay? And if you realize, oh no, that's a monster that's a dragon, a sleeping dragon that, so right now, yes, we have all of these incredible opportunities ahead of us, but let's make sure we deal with those things that you do not want to grow along with your strengths. Deal with those weaknesses. And so, as someone who has grown a business substantially yourself, are you conscious of that in your growth strategy? Most growth strategies are very positive. Are you conscious of recognizing that, we need to deal with this before we add another X amount to our current numbers?
Yeah. Not only that, I talk about it openly with the team. So infill structure of your business is a very important aspect, and you start pushing certain numbers. So some people don't look at the shop and the infill structure and they just see numbers. I say, well, you do that and this is going to break over here. You can't exceed the abilities of this department or the spray booth or whatever that might be. And growing, you have to make a decision. Do you want to do more numbers? Do you want to raise your price? Do you want to expand in other markets? Maybe a little bit of all of that. So yeah, that's a very conscious thing I think about. So for those who might not be familiar with my shop, and a lot of people aren't, even though we're kind of high profile because of like maybe Northwood's seminar or something, it's a unique space in our community where it has a studio setting, it has like a mini industrial thing going on, and we have the school. So that's balancing all of those within that infrastructure. And when you talked about something being amplified, it's just not the infrastructure and the abilities of your business in building guitars. It's your social media, it's how people are going to perceive you. When you start getting bigger, there's a lot of other responsibilities that come with that. And you have to think about that carefully. I've experienced, many cracks here and there that had to be dealt with that I learned from along the way. You're talking about business people and relationships. I've said to many people that we were getting ready to go our own way, and to say, remember, we were never as good as we were when we were together on these topics. And now we have to figure out a way to exist not together on these same topics. And those are very important conversations to recognize so that you can move forward gracefully. I mean, if that makes any sense to you.
Yeah, it does. And it's one of the things I appreciate about, working with you over these years is that if there's a problem, you pick up the phone. I suspect if I was your neighbor, you would walk over to me. But, we live many hours apart from each other. And so you pick up the phone and you say, hey, I just wanted to let you know we're something's coming up. And I think that, you're going to need to know about it. And let's just talk about it right now. And you deal with the problems head on.
Right.
And I really, really appreciate that and respect that about you. Because unfortunately, there's a lot of people who allow things to fester and they just don't. And then it becomes just this huge problem that could have been dealt with so much easier had you just set it straight up early in the game. And you do that exceptionally well. And I really appreciate that about it.
Oh, I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, though that can fix a lot of problems, and it can really strengthen a lot of relationships in the long run, because at least they know what's coming.
Yeah.
You can't follow through with everything you intend to do. And business has a way of throwing you curveballs. But additionally, aside from that, there are other people within the business who just don't seem to care. It's like if they don't pick up the phone because it's just not on their radar, and you have to deal with that on the backside.
Yeah.
And that can be so much more damaging in the long run.
Well, I mean, the name of this podcast is Life with Strings Attached.
I thought it was without strings attached.
Oh, no, it's with strings attached. And I don't mean that in the way of, the sneaky sort of, you didn't realize you had made this deal and now I own your soul kind of way.
Yeah.
I mean that there are people, and honestly, this time down here in Mexico is always with the people who fully understand that they are part of an interconnected web of people, and that it's important to network with them, to be able to just sort of have good relationships. And I know this is far from a business networking event, which I cringe when I have to go to those types of things. This is really just people who recognize that most of the great things that have come to them have just been by being open, by being the kind of person who can look at a situation and contribute something positive to it, find solutions. Everyone down here has been a solutions person. And it's those strings, it's all those connections to each other. And there's a lot of people who are professional bridge burners, and they don't realize that you're not an island. You cannot just burn all the bridges and still exist. It doesn't work that way. And so whether you like it or not, we're all interconnected, and it's best to show up, contribute, make the world a better place around you, and be that positive force for the people you meet. Positive doesn't always mean telling them great things. As a matter of fact, everyone here is also being a disagreeable person, someone who's very, who's not very quick to start saying, "Oh yeah, of course." No, we're all like, I don't know. Let's and we challenge each other.
Yeah, that happened this
right?
week. Yeah, it's like you kind of work your way through it. But I've had a lot of great conversations with people in this industry that told me what I needed to hear, or told me their perspective on life is, it's all perspective anyways. But they told me their view on it that didn't necessarily align with what I was seeing. I need to stop and look at that. Right. Frank Ford, the late Frank Ford, who recently passed away, great guy. He was really good at giving you the zinger. Another one out there is Roger Sadowski. We'd already talked about him once, but he's made an amazing business in a very tough environment by listening to his customers. But he's very quick with his viewpoint. He's not nasty about it. He's not trying to give you a zinger. And that is that competition that's good for everybody.
I know a lot of people who speak very highly of Roger.
Wow.
And so he's obviously made a very positive impact in his community as well.
We're very fortunate, I feel, to have made friends with that group, which of course is Roger and Dick and Michael Gurian and Richard Hoover, Dana Bourgeois. Those are core synthesizers in our business, and they have had a lot of positive flow. And additionally, they've been there forever. These are not, people moving in and out of the industry.
Right. Well, not to put too sharp of a point on it, but we just talked about the late Frank Ford. They can't be there forever, but their legacy can. And so all those strings to those other people whom they made a positive impact in, they will continue, and their ideas and their contributions will continue through the other people that they've not burnt those bridges with, maybe perhaps, and made those positive connections with. So yeah, that's great.
Those people are important. I feel great that I can pick up the phone and call them for advice. I try not to do that. I don't want to burn that up, but that's again what this community is about.
Yes, yeah.
I feel the community is very strong. I feel really good about the young people. I feel very good about the new things that they have found, to make a part of our business. Social media, which can be a very horrible and volatile environment, they find a way to work in and around that. I mean, it seems to be one of those things that could be kind of goofy anyways.
It's a tool. It's a tool, just like anything else. Your chisel, you can't make your acoustic guitar without your chisel. But you can absolutely hurt yourself with your chisel. You got to be careful how you use the chisel, And social media is no different. It can make you can shape your business with social media, and you can shape your public perspective with social media. But just like you're shaping and voicing your braces and ultimately the sound of your guitar, you are shaping and voicing your business with how you use the tool of social media. And if I think that we must be learning this by trial by fire, but we're going to know that. And the sooner people understand that, the better it is for themselves. Because it's hard to take back those words, And for any luthier who is missing a digit, from a bandsaw or something of the sort, or as Juha Kangas up in Finland calls it, his thumb router. His pin router is called the thumb router because it took off this much of his thumb.
Right.
You will learn. Also, you can have a piece of your body lopped off or a piece of your business lopped off by social media.
Social media.
And you gotta be careful with it.
Yeah, social media is not so goofy tool, but everybody's watching.
Yeah.
The message that you put out on there and what you say is there forever. It never goes away.
And just like your partial thumb, that digital imprint lives out there forever.
Mm-hmm.
It does. And so, when you make a mistake, it's possible to maybe overwhelm the bad with the good. Then you just have to just be much more conscious about your direction. Keep on direction good. But
Yeah, a lot of what we do, and it's just very passionate. It's very passionate, and we have different views on things, and different perspectives on the same topic. You just got to be really careful about about what you say or what's going out there, because it does live forever.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to pick up the phone.
Yes. Yes.
Again, pick up the phone. Like, how did I screw that up? Did I see that wrong? But we were talking about people in the industry also, and this is skipping away from social media real quick, just leaving the conversation for a second. And I wanted to come back around that today in our market there is so much opportunity, and we discussed that. And that's just not like just working for Gibson, and I say that just because that's an important tool for many people. Yes. They may not be there forever, they may move on, but watching how this whole thing has come together and being able to be a part of that has been a great privilege for our shop.
We have the decentralization of knowledge is what's happening. Is if you want to learn something, you can learn almost everything you need to learn now, because the information has been shared, content has been created in a very intelligent way. I don't mean that replaces schools. What it means for schools is that schools are going to have to really, really be conscious of what they're contributing to the conversation. They're no longer the gatekeepers to knowledge. A school has to be somewhere where you can engage with somebody in a personal level. I mean, certainly for guitar making, YouTube isn't watching that if you just shifted your handle on your chisel a little bit, or if you put your body behind your plane, as opposed to your arms, you would find that you improve. And so a school like yourself, really needs someone, a master's hand, to sort of look at it and go, oh, hang on a second here, it's not a big deal, just shift this a little bit, and you'll make that. But most education has not been that. Most education has been knowledge-based, and that knowledge-based stuff can be acquired at a very low cost at this point in time.
Yes.
And so the value of education and the purpose of education is shifting substantially. And you live in a country, where the institutions of education are serious high-dollar corporations, and there's a huge infrastructure behind that. And we don't have time to get into that right now, but all of that decentralization of knowledge, and the gatekeepers, just like the gatekeepers in the record industry, if you can write a great song right now and put it out there to the people, you can record it on your phone, you can capture their hearts. You don't need someone necessarily to come and put $100,000 behind you and send your record to a radio station. That doesn't exist anymore, right? And so, listen, we don't have time to go down that topic.
I'm going to just respond on that real quick.
Of course you should, yes.
But because that environment and that field is changing radically right now. Yeah. As a person who builds what I believe to be really good guitars and I'm in the business of selling information. And I recognized a long time ago that there was a movement in the horizon, and if I needed to get out in front of that at all costs, so I could be there to deliver it for my customers, to give them the edge that they were paying for. And that has come to run its course. What I always try to do is to have something in the war chest, right? When all of a sudden when that drops, I like to say, oh yeah, I've got that, but also I got this over here. But the internet has changed a lot. You put something out that's of any substance, there's going to be about 5 videos jumping all over that in under 8 weeks.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Competition is good. You got to be thinking about the next thing. Right. I know that you got to get ready and jump on the plane.
Yeah.
But first, I just want to say thanks to you, Roberta, for letting me be a part of this. I expect it to be a great thing, but this week has been very good with Josh and Joe and us hanging down here.
Yeah. And Kelly gets some props too. Kelly was here too. Carrie. Oh no.
Oh man, we have to go back and double.
Oh, it's on video.
What Kelly are you talking about?
Carrie Marks, please forgive us. We appreciate hanging out with you too. Well, Bryan, just in closing, I always, this is, we appreciate you giving your time. It's valuable. Is there something that maybe I didn't have the wherewithal to ask you, or some message that you want the world to know right now that would help you and your business?
Oh, well, I'm sure there probably is.
Of course.
But we're not going to get into it now.
Nothing you want to say? That's
No.
it.
Other than, again, thanks a lot. I really enjoy being a part of this community.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Bryan. As I said, we truly are better together, and my life is certainly better for knowing you, and our community is better for knowing you. And I think you're making a positive contribution to the world tonight. I don't say that lightly. I truly mean it. I'm not very. I don't bullshit people. I'll just be quiet. You've watched me at a table when the dinner's not good. I don't hand out free compliments.
This sucks.
No, I don't say this sucks. But I'm really bad at putting it on and making them think that it was good. I just don't.
No, I appreciate that. And this has been a very good talk.
Yeah. Thanks, Bryan.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you for watching and listening. You can find more episodes wherever you listen to your podcasts. And a special thanks to those who support us on Patreon. It's your support that enables us to do this work.